Modern conservatives only trust authority figures that place paramount importance in an individual's right to choose their freedoms and responsibilities. That's the too long didn't watch for the video. You can thank me later. If you're still here, I am Rorschach and welcome to The Conservative Lens. In today's video, we're going to be looking at how do modern conservatives decide in authority figures in which to trust, and what does this say about modern conservatives themselves. So, you might be asking, why does this matter? Rorschach, why does this matter? Why should I care? And the answer is that, as I mentioned in my introductory video, if the right would like to take back control over the cultural narrative from the left, this is what we need to do. We need to start looking at how does the right define itself without needing the left as a counterpart. And one of the interesting things about the way things are at the moment is that it gives the left the chance to scapegoat the right as this terrible, racist, homophobic, bigoted, terrible entity, and it's really not. And if the right can start doing things like this, where we examine what we stand for and why we believe the things that we do, then I think it'll be easier for us to explain this to others. And this is why you should vote Conservative, because this is what conservatives like, and this is what they are really about. And it's not just about being against gender theory or critical race theory. There's actually something else there. So, we'll start off with the commonly cited characteristic that conservatives do not trust authority figures. And to some extent, this is true. For instance, they don't trust Fauci, they don't trust Biden, they don't trust Harris, they don't trust Boris Johnson, who is, well, he's the head of the Conservative Party, but from his actions we can see he's not really conservative, based on what he's done. But while they don't trust those authority figures, there are authority figures that conservatives do trust. And examples of that are obviously Donald Trump, who is widely trusted by conservatives. There's Joe Rogan, who we'll get into now. There's Jordan Peterson. And actually what you notice by examining some of these figures that conservatives trust is that there's almost a circle. And actually Joe Rogan, surprisingly, is at the center of that circle. If you don't know who Joe Rogan is, I hope most of you do, but you might not. Joe Rogan is the founder and host of the Joe Rogan Experience, which is a very popular podcast. It's one of the most popular podcasts in the world, and very good, by the way, so I highly recommend a listen. You can find some clips of Joe Rogan here on YouTube, but these days he's on Spotify. And the interesting thing about Joe Rogan is that a lot of his guests are also in this conservative sphere of influence. They're also influential in that they're popular with modern conservatives. Jordan Peterson is one notable example. He is the Canadian professor of psychology that is controversial. Can't really understand why Jordan Peterson is controversial myself. Having listened to his content, it's mostly about taking responsibility for yourself, deciding where you want your life to go, and that's not really so controversial to me. But I suppose he's controversial because he disagrees with gender theory and forced language in the sense that government can force you to use certain pronouns or not. So I think the question that we need to answer is, what is it about people like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson that makes them so popular with conservatives and audiences on the right? And this is especially notable when you consider that both Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson have denied being conservative at all. They both say that they're more, I believe they say they're more on the libertarian spectrum than they are. And, they don't say they're diehard conservatives, they just say this is what they think based on their own free thinking and respect for freedom of speech and respect for individual liberties. These are the conclusions that they arrive at, and it's not to do with a political ideology or anything. And if you think about it, that's interesting, because here you have people who don't profess to be hardcore conservatives. They're not hardcore Republicans or anything like that. I mean, Jordan Peterson's Canadian anyway. And yet both of them are so popular with audiences on the right. So it's not their political ideology that's driving their popularity with audiences on the right. It must be something else. It must be the mindsets that they hold. I believe that it's the mindsets that each of them hold that makes them so popular with the right. I believe that these mindsets make their messages resonate very well with the right. So these mindsets inform their beliefs, and I think that because the mindsets are so practically aligned with the conservatives, they resonate very very well, and that I believe is what is really going on here. So now I think we need to think about what is this mindset that is driving their popularity. And before we get into this mindset, one thing which I'd like to mention, which I think is interesting, is that there's almost no overlap in the authority figures that the right and the left respect. And that's interesting if you think about it. There's no leader today, or very few, that are very popular with the left and the right. Usually a leader is popular with one or the other. And this, I believe, is because of the increasingly polarized political debate that exists today. These days, I think it's because people on the right are so vilified for their beliefs. This has caused the phenomenon of the secretive Trump voter that doesn't want to reveal that they vote Trump. It's caused me doing what I do, because there's the real danger that if I reveal my identity, I could get fired, I could get ostracized by communities, etc. And this phenomenon of the right being targeted by the media has caused, I believe, has led us to where we are today. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, so back to this mindset that conservatives look for in authority figures, and the reason why Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson resonate so well with conservative voters or conservative people. Anyway, there must be a mindset that conservatives have which guides them to deciding which authority figures to trust and which authority figures not to trust. And as I said before in the introduction, it's based on whether these authority figures place paramount importance on an individual's rights, freedoms and responsibilities. But there's more to it than that. There's something more fundamental that I think underpins that need, and that is what conservatives feel about themselves and about others. And in a simple sense, I think conservatives feel that they are sane, rational and responsible people, and they make sane, rational and responsible decisions, and they trust others in their community to make the same sane, rational and responsible decisions. And that's why they don't see the need for big government to regulate everything, because they just think if people are left to their own devices with relatively a smaller amount of intervention, that society will run in an optimal or near optimal way, that government should be the last resort if there's no other way of solving this between two individuals, then you can get government involved. And this seems to be why conservatives don't agree with things like vaccine mandates and mask mandates. I think a lot of the revolt has been because of the deprivation of choice. If you don't have choice in something, then it's an infringement in your human rights, and more than that, it's saying that you are not trusted to make this decision for yourself. Government has to make the decision for you as to whether you need to wear a mask or take a vaccine. And although I did say that we should be careful contrasting the right with the left too often, because this gets us into the same old trap of adversarial politics, I do think it's interesting to look at what the left thinks about these things, which is basically mirror of the right. That somebody on the left might believe that even though they are a sane, rational and responsible individual, they don't believe that others in their community are sane, rational and responsible individuals. And therefore, the only thing that will allow society to function as it should is big government intervening and controlling everything, and forcing people to, do things, which basically means making decisions for them. That's, I think, what guides why the left chooses the authority figures that they do. Fauci, for instance, and Biden and Harris, all these traditional mainstream figures, they take your thinking away from you. There's no thinking left to be done. There's no decisions left to be done. It's just whatever the news says, that's what you believe. So that's all I'd like to say on conservative mindsets and how conservatives and to some extent liberals choose authority figures. I will mention Donald Trump in a bit, that you might be asking, is he trusted because he has that same mindset himself? He believes in the individual's right to choose and in individual's freedoms, and all that is true. I think he does. But I think part of the reason he's so popular, so popular with modern conservatives, is precisely because of his outsider status. There's more to it than just what he believes about the way society should be run. It's a lot to do with his outsider status, and in fact, I think it's ironic that the more the mainstream media attacks Trump, the more popular he is. And you can actually see this. If you look at conservative media that circulates after an attack on Donald Trump, for whatever reason, his popularity actually grows. And so you come to the perhaps thought experiment. What would happen if the mainstream media claimed that Donald Trump was not in fact an outsider and had been an insider all along? Would it destroy his popularity? Yes, no. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been entertaining. I hope it has made you think, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I will see you back here with another video sometime soon. Thanks a lot.